Hello, welcome to Chop Shop Motors. My name is Clay, and we're gonna jump off of doing some of the motor stuff that we've done the last few videos, and we're gonna do one on a new acquisition I got for the shop. So we're working on building a new shop, an addition, some extra space, and so we'll probably shuffle some of the stuff around. This shop is pretty tight, and I've gotten, I've kind of got everything kind of smushed in, which, is kind of how it is, I guess, in a when you're in this car hobby. But some of it will probably go to the other shop, and we'll readdress how things are positioned here so that it is easy to access and looks cool and just makes good sense. So I felt like the new shop needed a shop warming present, so I bought something for it, and it's old and vintage and crusty, and let's see if we can clean it up a little bit. I'll show you what it looks like. So this is a Weatherhead storage unit for, typically Weatherhead did like brass fittings and those kinds of things. I don't think they did nuts and bolts, but they did all kinds of fittings for lots of different applications and industries. So there are quite a few of these that float around, and if you look in the background you can see that I have I think I have 4 different versions, or 4 of them, and I use them because I work on various kinds of old cars, not just one kind. I have one that is for F100s, like 53 to 5. I have one, this little red one is for 64 and 5 Falcons. I have one, the orange one's for 32 parts. And then the yellow one actually functions in its original capacity, and I keep brass fittings in it, along with other brass fittings downstairs. Those kinds of parts are both expensive, and sometimes the piece you need isn't readily available, so when you come across it you want to be able to put it someplace where you can get to it later. So that's kind of the thought process. So this one is going to be for Model T parts. So my dad and I had started collecting Model T parts and partial cars a long time ago, and it's time to make sure that I kind of organize that stuff and thin out some of the extras and make it so I know what I have. So I'm going to use this little red one probably for some small parts for Model Ts. But before that happens, I need to clean it up. I'm going to put you in the tripod and just let you kind of watch some of the stuff I do to try to, see if I can get this one to look a little more like the red one. The red one looks substantially better, but it actually was just as bad as this one when I started. And it does have a burn mark, but they all have stories to tell. So let's see if we can get this one to clean up a little bit. Okay, let's dive in. I'm not going to really show me much, can mainly show the box. So these boxes typically go anywhere from 50 to 250 depending on condition and kind of how beat up they are and how weathered they are. This one it looks horrible. It was probably in a little garage, where years and years and years of things happening around it splashed on it, and it has just endured and looks like this because it probably never has been wiped off in its life, and it finally ceased to be of any value and it came up for sale. So I love this kind of stuff. I'm just not willing to spend $250 on one of these, so I purchased this on the low end, and we'll spend a little time cleaning it up. This isn't a restoration video. So if you're looking to see how this is going to look when it's re-lettered and looks just like it the day it was new, that's not my goal. There are probably guys out there that do that. That's more investment than I want to make. I just want it to look the best it can look for its age, and I want to put it back into service. So let's kind of dive into this. Probably a lot of these pieces we're going to run through at Mach speed, and then I'll give a little explanation of kind of my tactics. I've got some miscellaneous things that I'm going to leverage. I use some lacquer thinner, some paint thinner, some 409-ish type cleaner, which isn't as good as it was a few years ago. It's pretty diluted, but that's what I have. Some steel wool and some elbow grease and a razor. So let's get started. So on top of the cabinet, it's got some goo. We're going to see if that'll come off in chunks. It may or may not. Sometimes this stuff is just almost vulcanized to the metal and becomes one with it, and sometimes it comes off. Feels like probably maybe a roofing tar or something like that, or maybe that's not what it is, but that's what it's turned into. As you can imagine, much of this stuff is kind of tedious, and at some point you're going to kind of decide what the point of diminishing returns is, and that's how far you'll take it. So, and sometimes also as you're doing this stuff, there's I know that some people may not want to hear this, but sometimes there is a little damage that occurs underneath because you're being so aggressive. But I don't know how to get away from that. So just got to realize that some of it is going to get a little bit of damage. Okay, so we got at least most of the big goober off. Now we'll give it a little 409 and just see what happens. Probably not much. So this particular piece has a fair amount of dirt on it, but it also has quite a bit of like overspray and overpaint and that kind of stuff. So I'm not expecting this to get too, to do too much. The thing you have to be careful of some of these cleaners is some of them really are aggressive, and they'll take off color that you don't want to take off of. So because this is so filthy, I think I'm pretty safe for at least the first round, but you do want to watch that. You don't want to remove the lettering and stuff like that. That's the balance. Okay, so we got a little bit of top. Let's try up here. Okay, not too much. So what I'm going to try here on this side is I'm going to take a little bit of lacquer thinner. My suggestion is wear gloves. Probably your skin probably doesn't need any of these chemicals on it. It's not 1960 anymore. And we'll start to see what happens with the little lacquer thinner. Lacquer thinner is really good for getting through that, some of that add-on overspray type stuff. Overused though, it will start to take some of the red off. So you got to kind of just got to watch it. Got to watch how it's reacting. can watch your rag too to see if it starts to change colors. It probably will as some of this comes off. Starting to get a little bit of the kind of junk off of this top piece. Okay, so you can start to see that there's some color coming off. So I want to be careful how aggressive I get with that. Alright, we'll do the top now. Just by the nature of the top, you know, being a catch-all for everything that is airborne and drips from above, it was really nasty. So we'll just, you know, again, we're just kind of taking it one layer at a time. We're probably removing, every time we do something like this, we're probably removing, you know, 3 or 4 years worth of accumulated crap. Can almost start to see just a little bit of red coming through. Just a little bit. There's some other paints and stuff on it too, so we're probably going to start to get some softening of the red. So I probably will be just about done with this part, and we'll just acknowledge that we got some grime off, but it leaves kind of a residue behind, so it's not like one and done. All right, I took a layer or so off. Now what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use a little rubbing compound, and I'm going to put a little liquid on there, and I'm going to see what happens when I put a little rubbing compound at work. So as you can tell, you're trying lots of different things and seeing what works, what doesn't, how, you know, where do you put the focus on it, how much do you do, when are you kind of at a point where you're not going to get much better. So what we have up here, we have some black paint, which might not get much better, or, you know, improve that black paint part, not without doing damage to the red. The rubbing compound will get rid of the lightly attached crap to the top, if it's not too bonded with it. But if it's super bonded to the red paint, then, you know, it's not gonna just rub off with the rubbing compound. So you're gonna just kind of have to figure out how much do you want to do, how good is this piece going to come back, how good do you need it to come back, kind of all that. And you always can come back to it and, you know, work it a little more. So the cleaner I'm putting on it is really not, it's really not there to clean it, it's just there to provide a little lubricant to the rubbing compound. So now I've stepped up a little bit because I've got some really stubborn areas here, and I'm using some pretty fine steel wool. So I guarantee the steel wool will cut through all kinds of stuff, but it'll cut through everything that you don't want to cut through too. So you got to really pay attention to what you're doing. This is being done in with the rubbing compound as kind of an agent. You don't want it to be too abrasive. I mean, it is abrasive, no doubt about it. So it absolutely is abrasive, but just pure rubbing compound would just take the paint off completely. So in the edges here, it's pulling some of the black off. I'm mainly working it where it had black paint dripped on it, or maybe overspray, but pretty thick. And some of that black paint's going to stay. There's no way I'm going to get it all off because I don't want to. It'll take the red down to the metal in some areas. So you just got to decide how much you're going to put into it. And remember, this box is probably, I'm guessing 1950s. It's probably post-war when they started using this box. I mean, maybe before that, but I'm guessing that from the construction and approach, that's probably what it was. So it's been around a long time. All right, let's wipe it off a little bit. Just see what we ended up with. Looking at the top, yep, it's got bare metal spots. It's got some black marks on it, and it's got a little bit brighter red. As you compare it to the front, you can see how dingy the red is on the front. Right now, I'm going to stop on the top because that, it's probably worthy of another pass or two. Could get a little bit nicer. But the tops usually suffer the most, so I don't know that I'm going to do a bunch more on the top because there's a lot of red paint missing. So that's probably where we're going to stop on the top. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to put you back in the stand. I'm going to do a little bit of work on the drawers, and then I'll bring you back after we see the progress. As you can see, the Weatherhead drawer here that I haven't cleaned yet is quite a lot darker than the one that I have on top right now that says original. You can see that it's cleaning up some. It's not going to come back to be, NOS, but it is going to clean up some, which is exactly what we wanted. So let me clean on these the last three a little bit, and then I'll show you the finished product. Well, this is wrapped up as I'm going to do it. So I'll pull you off of the tripod and give you a better look at it. But this is kind of as far as I'm going to take it. So some of you may look at it and go, well, it doesn't really look any better, and I get it. And others may look at it and go, wow, that was a big difference. I'm really happy with it. It's original. It's about as good as it's going to get. The paint, especially on this last drawer, as I was working on it, both the white and the red were starting to come up just from age, and these didn't get 14 coats of paint and clear coat. They were quick and dirty, probably a single coat of red, and then my guess is probably silkscreen the white lettering on it, and they were done. So not a lot of prep went to them. No primer was on them, just the paint and the lettering, and out the door. So all in all, I'm pretty happy with it. I'm real happy with it. It's going to be cool, especially as it's lined up with the rest of them. I'm going to move these around as I kind of redo this shop a little bit. So I'll have, more than likely, I'll have them all kind of in a line, and that should look really cool. So I've I'm going to kind of bring this to a close. I'll just do a quick overview of it with the camera and let you see it up close. There's the top. A lot of the paint was coming off or came off during the process. Lots of spots were rusty when we started. The front looks pretty nice. As you can see, that last drawer, the lettering doesn't have the pop that the other three have, and that's just the way it is. This side had looks like a burn mark, so I'm guessing it was on a bench close to where some torches were. And interestingly, the other one I have has a burn mark on the front, so maybe these were in garages, oftentimes where there were torches around. This side turned out pretty good, and I mean, for the most part, you really just see the front, and this will get repurposed for small Model T nuts and bolts, which is super cool. I love having everything organized. I have lots of bolt bins to try to keep stuff in order. I have bolt bins over here to keep stuff in order. Most of the time I'm working on stuff late at night when there's no way to go get it, so I need to have it. People give me a kind of razz me over the bolts I keep, but it allows me to keep working, so I'll take the razzing. Alright, there's the other ones that are going to go with it. That's it for this project. It's short and sweet. I'm Clay for Chop Shop Motors, and we'll see you on the next project.